Hey Guardians, welcome back. And as I promised, I'm giving you a triple threat today. First, we're starting off with the Solar Hunter build. Let's get right into it. So for Solar Hunter, we're running a Gunslinger subclass with Blade Barrage for your super. I feel that Blade Barrage does a very decent amount of DPS damage against any kind of enemy and boss damage. Golden Gun and Golden Gun Deadshot and Golden Gun Marksman, they're great supers, don't get me wrong, but I feel like Blade Barrage is where you really want to have that high damage super. Abilities, I like to run Gambler's Dodge, Triple Jump, Proximity Explosive Knives. Nice thing about the Proximity Explosive Knives is when you can attach them to any surface and then they have a countdown, they'll detonate. Very handy for a choke point, and here in a minute when we get into aspects, I'll show you why I like to use this particular knife more in depth. I also like running trip mine grenades. For aspects, we have the Gunpowder Gamble. With Gunpowder Gamble, what it does, it allows you with your solar ability kills, what it does, it charges up at an improvised explosive device, which is just a big grenade you carry around. It's very handy in taking care of groups of enemies. Can clear them out very quickly, and high DPS against higher tier bosses. And I like to run Knock 'em Down. With Knock 'em Down, while radiant, when you throw your throwing knife and it kills your enemy, it fully refunds your melee energy. So this is very handy when, especially if you're in a big group of enemies and you throw that proximity knife, catch one of the red bars, explodes, and they die, you automatically refund that throwing knife, so you have it ready and available for the next time you need to use it. So with these two aspects, it grants us 3 fragment slots. Now, as you can see, I have 2 areas grayed out here. I'll get to that in a moment. What I like to do is I run this build with 2 different kind of variants. With the first variant, we're using, of course, the Gunpowder Gamble and your Knock 'em Down. For our fragments is Ember of Blistering, which defeating targets with your solar ignitions grants you grenade energy. Ember of Benevolence, which it applies your restoration, your cure, and your radiant to your allies and grants increased your grenade, melee, and class ability regeneration. Then I also like to run the Ember of Torches, which your powered melee attacks, which is your throwing knife, make you and your nearby allies radiant. So this particular configuration of the build, I find lends itself more toward, if you like to make more explosive damage and more DPS that way, this is how I would run the build. My second variant is I would trade out Gunpowder Gamble for On Your Mark. With On Your Mark, it grants you the 2 extra fragment slots, but also with your precision final blows, you and your nearby allies get the increased weapon handling and reload speed. So if you do use On Your Mark instead of the Gunpowder Gamble, I would run the Fragments Ember of Wonder, which when you rapidly defeat your targets with your ignitions, you could generate your orbs of power. And Ember of Empyrean, which your solar abilities allow you to get restoration and radiant, and those effects last for you longer. What this does is this lends itself to be more along the lines of more survivability in the build. You will be a little more, I wouldn't say tankier, but you're able to survive a little more. But your explosive damages will suffer because you're lending yourself more to restorative abilities rather than straight up DPS. So I encourage you all to experiment with both variations, see what fits your playstyle better. Weapons I like to run is for my special weapon. I like to run the Reckless Endangerment Shotgun. This shotgun is one of the strongest in the game, and in my personal opinion, one of the most fun to use. My particular Reckless Endangerment which they all do, come with your Perpetual Motion and Steady Hands. I prefer to use Perpetual Motion because in my Hunter I'm constantly running around, and when you're constantly moving and running around, you gain bonus stability and handling and reload speed to your shotgun. And I like to use Swashbuckler, which is again, you gain extra weapon damage by melee kills and with kills with the weapon. And I like to run the Vanguard Vindication, which your final blows with this weapon grant you small amounts of health. Exotic of choice for this particular weapon is, of course, TQ's Divination. TQ's Divination is an exotic combat bow, which this is the key to your solar explosive damage. With TQ's Divination, its intrinsic trait of Sacred Flame. What Sacred Flame does is when you hip fire the bow, it will track 3 different targets. When those arrows hit those 3 different targets, they start to flash yellow, looks like they're kind of on fire a little bit. Once that happens, aim down the sights on the bow, which you just fully draw back the bow, and then send it. When you hit one of those enemies that look like they're on fire, they will explode, and it spreads explosive damage everywhere. So, in my playstyles, I like to find groups, enemies bunched up together. I'll hip fire, highlight a couple of them, and then I'll fully draw back the bow, send it, and crack one of them, and it just wipes the entire group out. It is also very strong against your yellow bars, your elite enemies. This bow is just fantastic. If you don't have it, Guardians, I highly recommend going out and farming for it. Get TQ's Divination. Now, with TQ's Divination, its catalyst will increase your explosive damage exponentially. I'm currently working on mine. With how to get the catalyst, you have to get 100 kills in Crucible against Guardians. I'm sitting anywhere between, I think I'm sitting at 80 kills right now, so I will give an update to this video once I get the catalyst and show you the damage difference. Heavy of choice is Cataclysmic, which is a heavy linear fusion rifle you get from the Vow of Disciple raid. With my particular role, mine came with 4 times a charm, which landing your precision hits returns 2 rounds to the magazine. Focus Fury, which dealing half your magazine as precision damage grants the weapon bonus damage. And of course, its origin trait Soul Drinker. You gain health based on the number of hits before reloading. Not necessarily kills, as long as they're hits. Armor pieces. My helmet, I like to run a arc helmet piece with a resilience mod and harmonic siphon. Harmonic siphon is becoming more of a staple in a lot of my builds here lately, just to the sheer fact of when you get weapon final blows with damage that matches your subclass. So since we're solar, we're using TQs, so when I get kills with TQs, I'm generating orbs of power. So with these orbs of power, and later on down the road I'll show you why, these orbs of power are helping me regenerate my abilities and helping me regenerate my health too, so it aids to my survivability. Running linear fusion rifle ammo mod. So with Cataclysmic, you want to have those ammo bricks drop for you. And lastly, Phantomite. Phantomite, I love running Phantomite with it here lately because of just the extra weapon damage you get when you proc Phantomite. So how you proc Phantomite is when you pick up elemental wells that match your subclass. So again, when we're using TQs, we're dropping our enemies, we're getting those solar wells, and we're getting those orbs of power. The exotic armor piece of choice, Caliban's Hand. Caliban's Hand, if you don't have it, Guardians, I suggest you start farming your lost sectors when it's arms day and get this. It really pulls the build together. With its armor perk Roast 'em, your proximity knives scorch your targets, it damages with its explosion, or ignites targets on a final blow. So if you remember, with our aspect, knock them down, when you throw your proximity knife and you get a kill with that proximity knife, you get an instant refund of that throwing knife. And also, if you see here on the bottom, after throwing a proximity knife, you gain increased melee regeneration. So this aids in that regeneration. You just get that grenade, you throw it, get the kill, instant back. Throw that, instant, got it. So whenever you throw it and get a kill with that proximity knife, you're good to go for the next round. Chest armor, I like to run solar with the resilience mod, thermal shock plating, which is a seasonal artifact mod, concussive dampener, which it reduces the incoming area of effect damage, and explosive wellmaker. Since we're making explosion left and right, I highly recommend you put explosive wellmaker on this build, because you are going to be generating those solar wells left and right. Legs, running with solar energy. Got resilience mod. Recuperation. With recuperation is when you generate your orbs of power, you regenerate your health. So that's why I like to run harmonic siphon a lot more, is when I make those orbs of power, I regenerate my health with recuperation. And then with innervation, I'm reducing the cooldown of my grenade every time I pick up an orb of power. And then lastly, with Well of Life, when you pick up your solar wells, you start to regenerate your health. So this aids my survivability. Lastly, the class item. Of course, we're running solar with resilience, double bomber. With double bomber, it reduces my grenade cooldown when I use my class ability, which is my dodge. And of course, Bountiful Wells. With Bountiful Wells, is whatever mod is generating wells for you, Bountiful Wells will double it for you. So with Explosive Wellmaker, if you get a kill, which will generally only generate you one well, with Bountiful Wells, it'll make it 2. So we're generating our abilities that much quicker. Alright, Guardians, so this is my Solar Hunter build. Please give it a try. This is video 1 of 3 that I promised you. More will be on the way. And as always, Guardians, stay safe.